Hey guys, welcome back to another ESPN video. We are here on match day 5 of AFCON. We're just reacting to Egypt versus South Africa in one of the more controversial games, I guess, of the tournament. There's a load of talking points to get through. I'm joined with Kirk, Colin, and Ed. Guys, thank you so much for joining. But let's get straight into the action of the game. I guess talking about that first half, it was an interesting game, and then it kind of lit into life with the Mo Salah penalty. Mo Salah obviously converts the penalty. Puts them 1-0 up, but even the reaction across social media, across all the group chats and stuff, it's been a bit of a controversial one, guys. Ed, I want to start with you. What were your thoughts on the penalty, man? Do you think it was Mo Salah doing the dark arts, or what were your thoughts on it, man?
I wouldn't go that far, but I do think it was very, very soft. I think it was clearly accidental. I think the arm was raised in. It clearly wasn't a malicious act. It's so frustrating, to be honest, that a match that was so tight, that was so cagey, that was clearly going to be decided and defined on the tiniest details or the smallest moments, in the end happened to hinge on that referee's decision, which for me was, I just think as a ref, I just think you give the benefit of the doubt. I think particularly when you take into consideration the context, like the fact that they were running away from goal, there wasn't any danger. Madao clearly didn't deliberately mean to lash out and poke Salah in the eye. And I just think it's such a naive and a slightly complacent call by the referee to give that, to be honest. It's not like a 50-50 where he's slapped Salah in the face and brought him down. And, it's innocuous. And I just think as the referee, you've got to play things on. So it's disappointing that the game was shaped by that moment, and really disappointing for South Africa, both that they conceded there and that they didn't take advantage of playing against 10 men for over half the game. What a disappointment for them.
Yeah, for real. I think that was obviously the next kind of thing that happened in the match, wasn't it? The sending off. I think obviously sending offs always change games, whether it's at any point in the match, and it always changed the game state completely. So South Africa come out in the second half with a bit of a different kind of task on their hands, I guess, and Egypt as well. I guess their game plan goes out the window. Marmoush comes off. Kirk, I wanted to ask you, because we were talking just before the recording started. What were your thoughts on South Africa, man? Because I think they came out flying, but they just maybe they just lacked that little bit of patience, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think when you're in that kind of situation, a lot of the time they say, or the saying is that 10 men, it's harder to play against 10 men than 11 sometimes. I think when South Africa came out, obviously it happening right on the cusp of halftime, I would imagine the team talk would have been straight, we've got the advantage, and we need to hit Egypt as early and as quickly as we can. But I thought they snatched at a lot of their chances. I mean, we've seen them hit the post from range before. I felt their attempts on goal from outside the box were a bit too consistent. I think they should have put their foot on the ball a little bit more. When you're playing against 10 men, one of the things that helps a lot is because you have that extra man advantage. If you can just make your opposition sort of work a lot harder, you'll find that you'll get a lot more space and a lot more time to sort of plan your moves and work your moves. And I think they made it a little bit easy for Egypt in the way that they approached the game when they came out. As I said, if they were just a little bit more poised and gave themselves a bit more of resting time with the ball and sort of move the ball around and again put their foot on it and just made Egypt work a little bit harder than they did, I think it would have been a different story. But yeah, again, I think it showed that, playing against 10 men, it seems like you have an advantage, but a lot of the time you prepare for 11, and then when you're in a situation where you have to play against 10, it doesn't always pan out how you think it's going to pan out, where you have an extra man advantage and it's that easy. So I think that's what we saw at the end of the day.
I agree with Kirk there. I think it was a real, South Africa's limitations going forward were really exposed. There was a lack of composure in the final third. There was a lack of a genuine creative talent who's going to make the key pass. There were a lot of attempts on goal, but how many of them really did you think that's a really good chance? Shinawi made a few good saves late on, admittedly, but you've got Mokoena taking 4 shots, only one of them hit the target. It was a bit of desperation, a kind of lack of refinement, I would say, about their finishing. And Egypt, you say it's difficult to play against 10 men. I think Egypt are one of the teams where that is particularly true because they just excel when it comes to a lot of the kind of negative conservative tactics, time wasting, negative play, you know, taking off Marmoush, their brightest player so far this tournament, is a great example of that. And yeah, I think South Africa will really, really regret letting this one pass them by.
Yeah, no, I massively agree. I feel like, especially in terms of like the shots, you mentioned how many shots were going up. I feel like they were shooting from distance in like the 56th minute, like they were chasing it. They were really didn't have no time to chase the game. So I think that was a symptom of what we're talking about there. But I guess going on to Egypt, how much credit, Colin, I wanted to ask you in terms of Egypt, how much credit do we have to give them for being so compact and defending? And you know, at the end of the day, they walked away with the 3 points. So it's a big, big victory for them.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Look, I think just like Kirk said, when you play against a team that's playing down 10 men, then it kind of, you know, makes things a lot harder. And when you look at Egypt, as soon as they went down, they sort of brought things back home and, you know, just sat deep, made sure that they denied South Africa all those spaces that they need. And if you know the way South Africa play, they like to make those little passing interchange in those areas and try to get in. But Egypt were disciplined enough. They stayed down, stuck to their business, and they just made sure they didn't give them enough of those spaces. And when they did get them, they had El Shanawi. I mean, he made like, 2-3 spectacular saves. Even the one towards the end where you saw the ball, it was almost like it was going in, and he made they just got that touch to it and put it away. So Egypt defended very, very well. Even when they broke a transition, they were disciplined about it. They didn't try to do too much, waited for players to come in and sort of like give support. And, you know, end of the day, I think you've got to give Egypt a lot of credit for the defending they did to keep South Africa at bay.
Yeah, they defended really well, man. And I think that's the credit we have to give them. Ed, I wanted to lean on your ball knowledge here, man, because obviously there's a lot of South Africa players that play in South Africa and they play in their professional league.
Why is Colin smiling when you say that? why is Colin smirking when you say ball knowledge?
Ball knowledge, man. We have to lean on it. I wanted to a player that impressed me in particular was Mbakazi, man. I think obviously South Africa lose the game as a defender. It's never nice to lose the game, but I was really impressed with him, man. What were your thoughts on his performance in general, bro?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I think it's one of those things I just love about the Nations Cup is when you find players who would never otherwise kind of come up against each other. And you've got Mbakazi, who's now playing in Major League Soccer, previously in the domestic league, up against Mohamed Salah, the most recognizable and celebrated African player for many, many years. And I think he was really impressive in actually neutralizing Salah and Egypt's other bigger name players. If you remember, the centre of defence, we talked about this in one of the preview sessions we had. The centre of defence for South Africa has been a bit of a question mark, a bit of a weak point potentially for the team. And Mbakazi, I think the authority he's bringing in that defensive unit. And they only conceded against a pretty decent Egypt team from this dubious penalty. So there was clean sheet essentially apart from that incident throughout the game, and Bafana deserve a lot of credit for that. And I think one of the more rounded and impressive defenders we've seen so far in the Nations Cup, and maybe a little bit of a shame that he went to MLS rather than try his hand already in European football. That's something he could do in the future, of course, and hopefully will do in the future, of course. But you look at some of his performances here against, well, today, for example, and you just wonder whether he could have aimed a little bit higher than MLS.
Yeah, that's true. I think he looked really, really good. He looked so confident as well. Sometimes he was dropping his shoulder, Cruyff turning out from the back. I was like, yo, who is this guy? No, he looked really, really good. But I guess it's time now to moving on to like towards the end of the game. There was chances going all over the gaff. But Colin, you were in the group chat and you explained why this penalty or penalty wasn't a penalty. Do you mind sharing why the ref VAR may not have given it as a penalty to South Africa?
Yes. So unlike Ed, I'm not an amateur referee at times. So and I ref so I ref grassroots games here, youth games all the way up to U19s, and the guidance on penalties from the law of the game has changed a little bit. And every year you get this guidance. So now when you look at Law 12, a handball offense is not just when the ball touches the hand. It's an offense if the ball deliberately touches the hand. Now, but the second part of that handball rule is that if the player touches their ball with their hand or arm when it has made their body unnaturally bigger. And so it is said that a player is considered to have made their body unnaturally bigger when the position of their hand or arm is not a consequence of or justifiable by the player's body movement for that specific situation. Now, that's the key explanation in that rule, which means that so if a player is taking a shot, for instance, there's a tendency to try to like stretch the arm a little bit to take the shot. And in this case, in going down to make the tackle, his hand was in a position where he's supporting his body. So now the key question for the ref that you have to determine was, does the player deliberately touch the ball? That answer is no. He did not deliberately take his hand to go hit the ball. Now, so they had absolutely no time to do anything about the arm hitting the ball hitting the arm. Now, the second determination was, has the player made their body unnaturally bigger? And that was the key thing that the referee had to look for. Now, in this case, hand movement, which is his hand supporting his body while he went on that sliding tackle, can be explained by his body movement for that specific situation. He was trying to kick the ball and his arms were needed for balance. So that was not a handball offense. So as soon as the ref made the call and I saw him make the call, I thought, nah, this is not. I mean, I saw him put it outside the box, and I heard the commentator saying, "Oh, it should be inside the box." My first thinking was, it's not even going to be a call in the first place. So when VAR took all that time to look at it, the VAR was trying to determine whether the hand was in a natural position or not. And so once the ref went in there, the determination he had to make was not whether the ball hit the arm or not, because the ball clearly hit the arm. It was not whether the ball was in the box or not. The first determination was did the player make their body unnaturally bigger as a consequence of that specific situation? According to Law 12, he did not, and so no penalty.
Damn.
Yeah, well, it's good that Colin's got one right for the first time since 2013. So I can't really say much about that. I think it is disappointing that it took so long for them to come to the decision, because I think it was a bit frustrating for people why it took seemingly the best part of 5 minutes. That may be an exaggeration, but it felt like in a very, very long time for them to get to the decision. Better they got to the right decision at the end. I wonder if the Nigerian Pierluigi Collina there has any opinions on whether the penalty should have been given for the involuntary hand to the face from Udoh. Colin, do you think that was that should have been a penalty or not?
Okay, so now that penalty was for dangerous play. Now, if you look at the angle of Udoh's hand, it's almost similar to the handball situation. Now, he was going away from the ball. Salah was away from him, and he actually stretched his hand deliberately, and I think he kind of poked Salah. And Salah made a meal of it, but the determination the referee had to make was if that was on I think it was a dangerous play. And it actually was dangerous play because his arm was actually stretched out all the way and hit Mo Salah in the eye. So that was endangering an opponent, and it was direct free kick inside the box, penalty.
Come on, Colin, man. Come on, man.
But you see, one thing I kind of want to make mention here is initially, I think when you look at what happened, especially with the penalty shot at the end of the game, I think it's made such a wave and everyone's talking about it because of just how much of a, let's just be frank, how much of a mess the handball situation is nowadays within football in general. Now, when I look at the way that whole thing was refereed, I think, or just the way it was handled, I actually think the referee sort of used a bit of common sense there. And I personally, I'm not too sure about everybody else, but I love it when I see, a VAR call and the referee goes and makes his own decision. Because sometimes I feel like there's a bit of pressure on the referee making a decision for a foul, wherever it might be, getting a nudge from VAR that there may be something else to look at, then that kind of influences the next decision he makes because he now second guesses maybe something that he said before. So I think in the way that obviously Collins explained it, and when you see the pictures as well, the defender clearly obviously was lunging for the ball. So it looked like he was either sliding for it or wherever. He was just trying to make a block. And it is a natural thing to do. Like anybody that plays football, sometimes we say, like, as a footballer now, it seems like you can't actually make any sort of attempt at the ball without putting your hands behind you for some reason. Like it just feels like any small thing, any incremental thing is going to end up in your team being at a disadvantage because a penalty is going to be given away or anything like that. But I think there isn't much clearance on like what a natural position is anymore. So when you're looking at the pictures of what happened in this instance, the player is making an attempt to block the ball and his when you're going down like that, of course your arm is going to go down to support your body. Like, it's just a natural thing that happens. So I think initially, obviously, when you look at it, you're thinking handball. Why? Because the rule in general over the last like few years there's been a lot to be said about it. Like, it's not cut and dry anymore. But in this instance, I genuinely think, obviously, after Colin's explanation, and when you think back, I think the referee used common sense. Like, he just sort of analyzed the situation and looked at it from that point of view, even after the VAR shout that came through. So, if I'm honest, I want to see more refereeing like that. Sometimes this is VAR. Like, it's not. You're all officials at the end of the day, and if you don't agree, referee on the pitch has to have the final say. And I'm all for it personally.
So Kirk, here's the thing, and it speaks to what Ed said about how long it took, right? Now, so first of all, some of the things you do as a referee is not rush to make a decision. So now the referee made the call. He made that call knowing that VAR would check and give him a better angle. The reason why VAR is there is to make sure they can review from all angles. So if you see him, he took his time picking the ball up, going to the line and putting it there. All of that was to allow the VAR time to look at whether it was deliberate or not. So the VAR spent time checking all of those things. One, did it hit the hand? Yes, obviously. Was it inside the box? They would have looked at that. Okay, yes, it was inside the box. Now, but the key thing was deliberate, and did it make his body unnaturally bigger? Now, once that, and that was the key thing, once it was determined that it did not make his arm unnaturally bigger, then the other two things did not matter anymore. So, but the VAR did not want to make that call, and I'm guessing here, did not want to make that call themselves. They wanted the referee to also come and confirm the call of it did not make his body unnaturally bigger. So that's why the referee had to go and look. And if you notice, it didn't take him any time at all. The reason why it didn't take him any time at all was because a lot of the job had been done already by the boot. So all he had to go and determine was did the hand make his body unnaturally bigger or not. Once he made that determination, it didn't take any time for him to make the decision. Now, if you go back to the AFCON final, Nigeria against Morocco, a similar thing happened. A ball was kicked by a Morocco defender, and Morocco attack. The Nigeria defender, Demain, had her arm sort of like going back towards the back of her body, and the ball hit her arm. Now, the referee called a penalty, but VAR reviewed, and the ref went to check, and it was determined that the arm did not make her body unnaturally bigger because it was not deliberate. She was definitely trying to get the hand away from her body. It didn't make her arm unnaturally bigger, and so the PK was overturned.
I honestly just think it's mature in this instance. When you look at the in isolation, just this instance in isolation, I think it's actually quite mature from all the officials, if I'm honest.
No doubt. I think Colin, you explained it to us nicely, because I can't lie, when I saw it, I was outraged. I was like, why is that? Why not a penalty? That is a penalty. But yeah, thank you for the explanation. Because I was laughed. Moving ahead then, obviously now Egypt going to a commander position. Obviously, I think they're through now. South Africa on 3 points. Zimbabwe and Angola are both on a point each. I guess the question I'm going to ask you, Ed, if that's cool. Which team will be more, because I feel like South Africa is still in quite a comfortable position within the group. Which team will be more kind of in a better position to take on Egypt or South Africa? Because obviously Angola take on Egypt. Obviously Egypt will be qualified. Will they take their foot off the gas a little bit more, or will they still want to go for it? And obviously South Africa, there'll be a bit more jeopardy there. So Zimbabwe might have to, do you know what I mean? Zimbabwe might have a bit more of a tougher task. So who do you think is better positioned going into the next round of fixtures in this group?
Yeah, well, Egypt don't just go through. They also confirmed as group winners, because it goes down to head-to-head. So even if South Africa get another 3 points and Egypt themselves lose, they would still go through in first place ahead of South Africa. I think that Angola have got more talent than Zimbabwe, but I think that they are... they've kind of maybe been one of the underperformers so far. They obviously drew earlier today 1-1 with Zimbabwe. And I think I don't really think Egypt will take their foot off the gas necessarily. Maybe you would see Salah not play the full game, for example. But I still think they'll feel that they need to show much more that they are their title contenders. Because even though they've got 6 points, I don't think we've really seen too much that's been overwhelmingly convincing from Egypt. They obviously only beat Zimbabwe in the 91st minute of their first game. And it was a very disjointed attacking performance. Apart from Marmoush, who was kind of going it alone at times and seemed the only one who really brought dynamism to the final third. I think that Egypt will still be expecting to be looking a much more much more controlled and much more menacing. And I think so they'll definitely want to demonstrate that against Angola. Zimbabwe, they've got only 1 point so far, but I think they've actually been quite impressive. And that match now, Zimbabwe against Africa, it suddenly looks to be a really, really huge one for both teams. Obviously, it's a derby. It's a Kasafa clash between the big brothers and the little brothers of the region. And I don't think that's going to be easy at all for Bafana. And I actually think Zimbabwe could do something in that match. They're going to, obviously, a draw wouldn't be enough for Zim. So, it's going to be a fascinating one. That one now potentially one of the matches to watch over the week, over the final round of games.
Yeah, no doubt that it's going to be an interesting one for sure. Well, guys, thank you so much again for joining us on Pod Reaction. We're going to be doing more of these over the course of the tournament. Ed, you're off to Morocco versus Mali, right?
If I can make it with the traffic, yep.
Yeah, well,
just take a flight.
Otherwise,
Take a chopper.
I'll blame Colin's long explanations as to why I wasn't able to.
Just take a chopper, Ed. You can afford it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next video.